Hi everyone, David Aragona and Brad Free here, taking a look at one of the Grade 1 events on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Race 12 is the Pegasus World Cup Turf, this one going the mile and an eighth distance on the grass horse. Before we get into the field for this race, do note that those Pegasus World Cup PPs are now available. Just go to shop.drf.com and get your Pegasus handicapping started. There is a lot to go through, 13 races, plenty of stakes action, and Brad and I will be covering a little bit of it on the YouTube channel today. Let's take a look at the field of these 12 runners in the main body of the Pegasus World Cup Turf. A couple of also eligible runners that could scratch in if there are the necessary scratches in this race. But Brad, this is a race where I think the strength does lie in the middle of the starting gate with the number 7 Nation's Pride, who is coming in for the always dangerous Charlie Appleby Godolphin operation. William Buick even coming over to ride this race, and he's got the best form on paper, but once again, you've got to wonder if this horse can bounce back off a poor performance in Bahrain, which he's done before, but now he's a 6-year-old.
He's 6 years old, but boy, does he show up. I mean, you take away his 2 starts at Bahrain and his up the track finish in the Epsom Derby a couple of years ago. He shows up every single time. 19 starts, 10 wins. There's a reason he's the 2-1 favorite. He's the class of the field. Having said that, this is not a one-horse race. There are lots of contenders in here. I'm not going to pick Nation's Pride in the top 2. Not because I don't like the horse. I do. I just don't want to take him at 2-1 in a 12-horse field.
Yeah, only 2 horses that are listed at below 6-1 on the morning line. The other one being Integration, who does tend to take a lot of money, and he's a horse who has plenty of ability. We'll see if he can finally earn that Grade 1 victory on Saturday. Let's take a look at the time formulas pace projector to get a sense of how these horses might sort themselves out in the run to the clubhouse turn, Brad. And as I was handicapping this race, I kind of was having a tough time figuring out who was going to be on the lead in this race, because there are several horses with tactical speed, and I think they're all shown towards the front end on this pace projector graphic that we're looking at, but none of them are really need the lead types or confirmed front runners. I wonder if they might get a little more aggressive with the number 2 Formidable Man than they've been recently, because he is a horse that did show the ability to go gate to wire early in his career.
I agree. I don't. My gut feeling is Formidable Man is not good enough on form. However, the pace scenario benefits his running style. He will be forwardly placed. This race is kind of similar to the Filly Mare Turf. There's not a true confirmed this horse will make the lead type of runner in the field. But then when you look back over the short history, this race has been run 6 times with a purse of $1 million approximately, and every single winner has rallied from behind. The closest winner was position 3rd. So I'm not going to let the tepid pace scenario influence me too much at this mile and 1/8 trip. I think what it boils down to is class and who can finish. I give Formidable Man a big look on the pace angle, and because he's listed at a giant 15-1, and he'll probably be every bit that price. But this is a race that could unfold at a relatively soft tempo.
Let's go through this field in program number order, beginning with the number 1, Siege of Boston, a horse who has not visited the winner's circle in a while. Actually, it's been since June of 2023 when he won an optional claiming race at Laurel. And since then, he's picked up minor awards in a number of stakes events, and he's run pretty consistent buyers in the low to mid 90s, but just looks a cut below at this level, Brad. I will say he's one of several coming out of the Fort Lauderdale last time and had some traffic in the stretch, but still never looked like he was really going to get there that day.
Yeah, he's a grade 3 placed older horse, and he's probably not good enough, but he did not have a good trip in the Fort Lauderdale. He was blocked from the 5/16 to deep stretch. I don't know where he would have finished had he gotten, a clean trip. He only lost by a length and a half, finishing 5th. I thought it was a good race, but when you look at his overall body of work, he's probably in a little bit tough.
The number 2 is Formidable Man, a 3-year-old stepping up, or 4-year-old, I should say, stepping up against older horses for the first time. All of his prior victories came when he was against age-restricted competition. And we'll take a look at his most recent start when he won the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby against fellow 3-year-olds at Del Mar, and got a very good trip in this race, Brad. But he is the kind of horse that can make good trips for himself, because he's really developed a lot of versatility over his past several starts. He had that tactical speed towards the beginning of his career, but he's been able to adapt to rating tactics recently. This is definitely a tougher field than he's met over his last 3 wins in a row, but he does keep upping the ante every time and stepping up, and he is at a stage of his career, and maybe there is another forward move coming.
Well, he's a newly turned 4 year old, so why couldn't he continue to improve? And he has that front running or pace pressing style that could produce a very advantageous trip in a race that's likely to unfold at a relatively soft pace. Again, I said this earlier. I don't think he's good enough, but the fact that he's going to be on or near the front end in a race that's going to be run at a slow clip makes me believe that at 15 to 1, he's a horse that you must consider. Secondly, trainer Mike McCarthy has shipped 6 horses to Gulfstream Park in the last 5 years for graded stakes. CC won the Princess Rooney twice. Queen Goddess won the Filly Mare Turf once. So McCarthy is 3 for 6 at Gulfstream Park in the last 5 years, and that doesn't even count Independence Hall, who finished third in the Pegasus at a giant price. So when McCarthy goes to Florida, he goes with the goods, and Formidable Man has been pointed to the Pegasus turf for weeks. Ever since he won the Hollywood Derby, McCarthy said, next stop, Pegasus. Here we are. Is he good enough? We're going to find out, but he will be in the race every step of the way, and then we'll find out if he can finish with these good older horses.
Yeah, I kind of kept coming back to him too from the trip standpoint. He's going to be in position to make an impact at the top of the stretch. The number 3 is Mi Hermano Ramon, a horse who has just been getting better with every start since he returned from a very long layoff in the middle of his 4-year-old season. He's now a 5-year-old gelding and coming off the best performance of his career last time out in the Grade 2 San Gabriel at Santa Anita, where he ran second to Johannes, who might win an Eclipse Award for Champion Turf Mail a little bit later this week. Johannes obviously not playing here. He's out with a setback, but Mi Hermano Ramon ran really well within the context of this race, Brad, because he made the first move wide around the far turn, got there at the top of the stretch, and just couldn't hold off Johannes. But that's certainly no disgrace stepping into this field.
Mi Hermano Ramon ran super last time out. The problem, or one of the problems, was Johannes is just a better horse than he is. If Johannes was in this field, I think that he would vie for favoritism along with Nation's Pride. But Johannes is on the sidelines. So the horse who finished second to him, Mi Hermano Ramon, I think you got to take a long look at him. And he did not get a very good ride from Luis Saez last time out. You can't jump out 4 wide on the far turn with a premature rally and expect to continue that run all the way to the wire. Grass routes are won by jockeys who can save ground, wait, patient, and blast home. Those premature wide moves on the far turn, like Saez uncorked last time out with Mi Hermano Ramon, do not usually work out. Despite that, he still ran well. He's getting better. Trainer Mark Glad is having a terrific season last year and this year out in California. And Mi Hermano Ramon, to me, I like him quite a bit in this race. I just hope that Saez opts to take an inside route as opposed to the outside route. I'll risk him getting stopped down on the rail rather than go wide. But I like Mi Hermano Ramon. And if he's 8 to 1, that to me is a very good price.
The number 4 is Win for the Money, who did achieve a Grade 1 success when he won the Woodbine Mile in an upset late last year, coming up the inside to get that victory. He then tried the Breeders' Cup Mile. Not only was he a little overmatched that day, but he did not get the right trip. He was hung 3 to 4 wide around both turns. You can't get a trip like that at Del Mar and expect to have success. And then last time out in the Fort Lauderdale, I actually thought he ran really well within the context of that race because it didn't seem like Dylan Davis wanted to be so forward early, but the horse kind of dragged himself there. Nobody was really intent on going to the front end, and he just wound up in that position where he had to make the first move coming to the quarter pole, and the race was kind of coming apart towards the end, but he battled on to just miss that day. He's run some big efforts at Gulfstream in the past, actually his top buyer of 102 that he earned tied later in the Woodbine Mile, earned that figure also at Gulfstream earlier in his career, so he might work out a pretty good trip from an inside post here.
Yeah, he could. I'm not sure how good he is, and that sounds silly to say because the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile is historically one of the top turf miles in North America every year, and he won it on the square. You're right. In the Breeders' Cup Mile, he did not get a good trip. He also got basically dusted by More Than Looks and Johannes. So if Johannes can finish that far in front of Win for Your Money, and Mi Hermano Ramon finishes only, less than a length behind Johannes, I think that based on horse-to-horse comparison, it's probably oversimplifying things. I think Mi Hermano Ramon is a better horse than Win for Your Money, but Win for the Money. But he's going to be in the right spot, forwardly placed, and he'll be in a spot to make his run.
The number 5 is Integration, and I found him to be kind of a tough call in this race because there's no doubt this horse possesses a ton of natural ability. I mean, we saw it going all the way back to the third start of his career when he won that Hill Prince, looking like he was going to take the turf division by storm when he turned 4 the next year, and it just didn't really work out. I mean, we're now, I think, 7 or 8 starts later, and he's yet to win a Grade 1 race. He was the favorite in the Pegasus World Cup turf last year, disappointed that day. We'll take a look at his most recent start when he won the Red Smith at Aqueduct, going the 3-turn mile and 3/8 distance. And I'm not sure that he's even best going this far, Brad, but he was just able to beat an overmatched group this day with his patented late run through the final eighth of a mile. He really is able to turn over his stride once he produces this kick, and you see him running away from this field here. But now he's stepping back up into Grade 1 company, and I just wonder if we're going to see him put forth his best foot against this field.
Yeah, I have some reservations about Integration. I'm not sure if a mile and 1/8 is far enough for him. He needed every bit of that mile and 3/8 last time out to win the Red Smith at Aqueduct. But I'm not sure. He's going to have to be coming from behind in a race that might not unfold in favor of his style. I know that this race is historically won by come from behinders, but Integration is going to have a lot of work to do. And here's a bizarre stat. I was not expecting to see this on Formulator. Shug McGahee, since his most recent Grade 1 win in October of 2020, is 0 for 38 in Grade 1 races. An unbelievable trainer stat. He's obviously a great trainer, but he's on a little bit of a cold streak as far as Grade 1s, and Integration is going to have a lot of work to do.
The number 6 is Major Dude, and he was the winner of the local prep for this, the Fort Lauderdale. Let's take a look at the stretch run of that race, and there are several coming out of the Fort Lauderdale back in this field. Major Dude is the one that's in the Spendthrift orange and purple silks that is about to come through between horses. That's Win for the Money, the chestnut with the white face on the lead that we already talked about. And Major Dude does find the split in the final eighth of a mile here and is able to rally on to the victory. Got a pretty good trip this day, Brad. He's the kind of horse that tends to get pretty good trips in his races because he's got that handy style and tactical speed. I think we saw the best that he's capable of producing last time, and I wonder if that's going to be good enough to beat this tougher bunch.
Well, he won the Fort Lauderdale by a neck, but to me, it was a more decisive victory. He never looked like a loser. All he needed to do was find room. That was his first start in a couple months. I think he has a license to improve. He's a horse that bugs me. He bugs me because he didn't make my top 4, but I am concerned that I have underrated this horse. I think he's a contender. That last start I thought was terrific, and I think he'll be running late. I give him a big long look. He's not in my top 4, but he could easily pop up and win this, in my opinion.
The number 7 Nation's Pride is really the key to this race because, as you were mentioning in our open, Brad, if he runs his top race, he's just going to beat this field. And he's run his best race more often than not when he's been participating in North America. He's got those 2 disappointing performances when they shipped him over to Bahrain at the end of his 2023 and then again 2024 seasons. Kind of surprising they went back there after he was disappointing a year prior. But now he's a 6-year-old trying to get back into top form. Charlie Appleby has never run a horse at Gulfstream before, and it's a little strange to see him participating in North America at this time of year because we've typically seen him come over after the major races in Dubai are run. And the fact that this horse is here right now kind of means that they're probably not targeting Saudi Arabia. We'll see if they do eventually go over to Dubai with him, but I've got some questions about whether he is going to get back to the best form we've seen from him in the past.
Yeah, so do I. I've sometimes have a hard time, coming to grips with these veterans who you want to take a stand against, but you recognize that if they do show up, they're probably going to beat you. To me, it's an easy call because he's the 2-1 favorite. If it's a favorite that I have question marks about, and I don't use the horse and he beats me, well, that's just part of the game. I'm not worried, whether it's Nation's Pride is good enough. He certainly was once upon a time. What I would not want from a horse playing perspective is to take a short price on a horse that I have questions about, the same as you. Who knows if he's the same horse and what's he doing, in January at Gulfstream Park, Charlie Appleby. So Nation's Pride, yeah, I picked him 3rd just out of respect for him being a good horse. I'm not going to bet him at a short number.
The number 8 is Spirit of St. Louis going out for the Chad Brown stable. This one is a New York bred, and he's done plenty of his winning against New York bred company. He's really been the king of that state bred turf division in New York State over the past couple of seasons. Tried open company in the turf mile at Keeneland two back Brad, and I thought he actually ran okay that day. Even though he finished fifth, he was a little wide around the turns and stayed on until the very late stages of that affair. Came back in the Mohawk last time, and I thought beat a field that was considerably weaker than this one, but got back to the winner's circle. And he's going to be a decent price going out for the Chad Brown stable, which you don't get that often.
I don't think he's going to be 20-1, David, because
I
his
don't either.
numbers that he posted primarily against New York Reds last year are just too fast to ignore. And I've said this before, speed figures have the most influence on the betting than any other factor. It's very rare that you get a horse that can do buyer speed figures in the upper 90s or thoroughgraph sheets, thoroughgraph numbers around 0.5. Those horses don't usually start at 20-1, and I don't expect that Spirit of St. Louis will start at this high of a price either. I think I can see him going maybe half that. His race in the Grade 1 Turf Mile, I mean, let's face it, Carl Speckler and More Than Looks are top class turf milers, and Spirit of St. Louis, he finished less than 3 lengths behind them. So he's fresh. They've aimed him specifically for this race. He'll be forwardly placed. I picked him second at a giant number. I'll bet him at odds of 10-1. I think Spirit of St. Louis has a chance to upset this race.
The number 9, Balnikov, comes in from Southern California, and actually his one victory last year, and his one victory in quite a while, was when they did ship him across the country at Pimlico on Preakness weekend last year, though that was a boggy track that he did win over. He's just a horse that's had trouble finding the winner's circle generally recently, and I think that's mostly due to his running style. He comes from so far back, and talking about how the pace scenario of this race looks a little bit tough to read and murky, Brad, I'm just not sure he's going to get the setup that he needs.
Yeah, he's a good, solid Grade 2 caliber older gelding. He's made more than $1 million, and you have to admire these veterans. But he's facing a tough task in a race that does not look like it's going to set up for his style.
He wasn't shown in that first Vanguard of Horses on the pace projector, but I won't be surprised if the number 10, Battle of Normandy, gets an aggressive ride because he at least has won in gate to wire fashion before, and he's shown decent tactical speed in his recent races, albeit in races that featured relatively slow paces compared to what he might face on Saturday. But he's won 4 in a row. He's been in great form for Shug McGahee, improving every time, and you can typically expect Shug to get horses like this to hold their form.
Well, he certainly has held his form for his last 4 starts. I mean, he was just a modest allowance caliber horse, and then all of a sudden the light bulb went on. One other than, two other than, the River City last time out. So 4 straight stakes win, 4 straight wins, and a forwardly placed running style. I give him a chance at a price. He's listed at 20-1. I personally don't like him, but you can't knock a horse that's won that many races in a row.
The number 11, Grand Sonata, has earned some speed figures or buyers in the upper 90s, but generally, when he faces top competition, he seems to be a cut below those horses. And over the past year, he's run his better races going much longer distances than this. So, drawn all the way outside in post 11, Brad, it seems like he's got a tall order facing him.
Yeah, very tall order for Grand Sonata. He'll be picking him up late, I suppose, but a mile and 1/8 seems like it's perhaps at this stage a little bit shorter than he would prefer.
And then another horse who's going to be a big price in this race is the number 12, Chasing the Crown. I know that he placed in a couple of graded stakes at Churchill Downs last summer. Those were pretty short fields where nobody really wanted to run against a Charlie Appleby Titan that came in there. Since then, his form has been okay, but certainly a couple of what's required to win this race.
Yeah, look, he's a good, solid, hard-knocking horse. He's won 5 out of 17 and made a lot of money, but this is tough from post number 12. He has no tactical speed. He's going to have to work out some sort of trip. I'd be surprised if he hit the board.
That's the main body of the field. I do think the number 13, Fort Washington, would be mildly interesting if he drew in off the also eligible list. He ran very well in the Fort Lauderdale last time with a tough trip. But let's throw up our picks for this race, Brad. And we pretty much agree on the number 3, Mi Hermano Ramon. I mean, he is a major player in this race and drawn well, just needs a better ride from Luis Saez.
Well, that's just it. I picked him on top. He's listed at 8-1. He ran super against Johannes last time out, and like we mentioned earlier, David, Johannes would have been one of the 2 favorites in this race. Mi Hermano Ramon cannot go 4 wide on the far turn and expect to win this race. So I hope that Luis Saez tucks in, saves ground, finds a split, and then blasts home. So I like Mi Hermano Ramon, but there's nothing wrong with betting two horses in the same race. And I will also be taking a long look at Spirit of St. Louis, coming in fresh with some huge back speed figures. So I like numbers 3 and 8 in that order. I picked Nation's Pride third just out of respect for the racehorse.
Yeah, we both also have the number 2 Formidable Man in there, who we can see getting a good trip. I was having a tough time deciding between my top two, so I'll put the number 4 Win for the money on top, who's probably going to be a better price. Just a horse that I think is going to work out the right kind of trip in this race, and he's a little inconsistent, but I do think his best performance has put him right there in the mix. So 4-3-2-7 for me, 3-8-7-2 for Brad, and race 12, the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races on Pegasus World Cup Day.